Hello and welcome back, adventurers. Today we are taking a closer look at the residents of Dementlieu, especially those who are doomed. I must warn you though, I will be talking about the past and motivations of some prominent NPCs, so continue at your own risk. Born in Mordenshire to the well-respected Dionair family, Dominic lost his mother at birth due to a long and exhausting labor. An intelligent and perceptive child, Dominic's astute observations of people around him taught him much about human relationships. Only his mischievous nature matched his unquestioned intelligence, and he did not hesitate to use his talent for manipulating people to malicious ends. Using only the subtlest of words, Dominic could turn friends and even lovers against each other, taking great delight in every ruined relationship. When he was 7 years old, Dominic's manipulations turned fatal. Finding his new nanny overly strict and inflexible, the young boy used his talents to affect his nanny's mind and destroy her relationship with her employers, friends, and even her fiancé. Only a slight suggestion from Dominic was necessary to cause her to take her own life. Disturbed by the attention that incident brought, Dominic asked his father to move away from Mordant, and so they came to Dementlieu. Once settled in this new home, Dominic refined his dominance games, taking them to the new levels and entering the realm of politics while still a child. Using his relatives and his father in particular, he put his family on the political map of Dementlieu. When he reached adulthood, Dominic discovered that his power over other mind had become a supernatural gift. He realized that he was the most powerful entity in Dementlieu, bar none. Before he attained the age of 30, Dominic removed his father from the Council of Brilliance and set himself up as a chief advisor to the Lord Governor of Dementlieu, a position he has held ever since. Dominic controls the realm of Dementlieu with gestures, suggestions, whispers, and the occasional raised eyebrow. Most citizens consider him a respectful member of the government, whose influence is vast and charisma is unmistakable. Only those who have completely fallen under his control, however, realize the true extent of Dominic's power. These unfortunates are the obedients, and for them, the realization comes too late. His power over his people intoxicates him, propelling him to spin elaborate webs of deceit and manipulation for the simple enjoyment of seeing others dance to his tune. He seems to possess everything he could possibly want, but his romantic life has been a source of frustration for a long time. The women in his early life, with one exception, spoil him relentlessly, and Dominic still needs this constant devotion. Unfortunately, his internal curse as a Dreadlord has doomed his chances for success. Since assuming his place as the de facto ruler of Dementlieu, Dominic has lost his ability to attract women. Any woman he seeks out finds him repellent. The more he tries, the worse it becomes. His frustration even caused him to strangle the first woman to reject him, the only murder he has ever directly committed. Rudolf von Obrake was the son of the political ruler of Lamordia, Baron Wilhelm von Obrake. Generally regarded by the population as a selfish brat, Rudolf was claimed by one of the Lamordia's legendary storms, when he and his friends were drunkenly partying. His body washed ashore on the rocky northern coast of Lamordia, where he was found by Alexis Wilhav, a young man working as an assistant to Victor Mordenheim. Alexis took the body back to Schloss Mordenheim in the hope of saving the young man. Dr. Mordenheim, however, had other plans. He convinced his assistant that only Rudolf's brain was in any capacity to be saved, and together they performed the procedure. The brain was placed inside a glass jar with the wires carefully attached to particular lobes to maintain function and filled with a saline solution constantly exchanged by a simple pump. Eventually, it became apparent that the brain was actually aware. Mordenheim tried a multitude of ways to communicate with Rudolf, but knowing little of psionics was unsuccessful. But when he tried to destroy the brain, Dr. Mordenheim realized that he was compelled to help it instead. After months of work, Rudolf's brain had better equipment to survive the journey to Dementlieu. Rudolf compelled young Alexis to board the ship, and by their arrival, the crew was completely controlled and began setting up premises in the merchant's quarter for the creature. The living brain decided to use his newfound powers to conquer port-a-lucine, but quickly realized that Dominic Dionair had already enslaved a large portion of its population. Since then, the living brain has been in constant battle with the Dark Lord of Dementlieu, fighting, quite literally, for the minds of the people of port-a-lucine. The living brain now operates an underground network of resistance against his foe under the merchant's quarter. His controlling powers have slowly infiltrated a wide cross-section of port-a-lucine populace, forming an intricate network of unwitting spies. Although many know that they work for the brain, most see this as simply a moniker used to maintain anonymity and have little idea of their master's true nature. Alexis Willhaven ceased to be useful to the brain some time ago. Years of mental domination, compounded with guilt at his own complicity, led to a complete mental breakdown. He was eventually confined to the sanitarium in Châteauneuf, where he has not uttered a word other than Rudolph for years. Pauline Junot is currently the brain's most trusted minion. A peasant girl who lost her family when a tenement house collapsed, she sees the brain as a means to eventually overthrow the corrupt and exploitative government of Dementlieu. Alanik Ray was born in Darkon town of Dementlieu into one of the wealthiest merchant families in the district. Ray spent his early childhood relatively sheltered and apathetic, but when his teens came, he was allowed to mingle in the streets of the city. The more time he spent in the macabre town, the more dismayed he found himself at how dangerous and unjust the world was. Young Alanik's world was then destroyed when his father, Alanik Ray, was charged by the Baron of Dementlieu with trading in illicit drugs and avoiding taxes. Further rumors that the Baron was in fact involved in his father's schemes left Alanik re-evaluating his level of trust in everyone he knew. In time, he joined the guard that he trusted in solving many crimes in Dementlieu and eventually moved to Mordenshire to escape his past. He began practicing professionally as a detective, and his skills earned him admiration and acceptance from his neighbors. Alanik befriended Arthur Segwick in Mordenshire, a young doctor recently returned from his studies in Dementlieu. The two soon became great friends, Segwick's magical talents complementing Alanik's investigations. Having built up a reputation as the great detective, Alanik was asked to move to Martyra Bay in Darkon to take charge of constabulary there. Alanik was known to be a good friend of Rudolf van Richten before the doctor disappeared. Not long after that, high-level Kargat agents tried to capture Alanik Ray, but the great detective managed to sleep to port-a-lucine. Alanik currently works as a consulting detective to anyone whose case sparks his interest. He has a strong interest in providing justice to all who need it, and so charges for his services on an ability-to-pay basis. The cases that most interest Alanik are those with an aspect of the supernatural, or in which the killer is especially cunning. His deductive reasoning and talent for lateral thinking makes him superior to almost any gendarme, but his lack of condescension results in few being offended by him. Arthur Segwick has compiled many tales of Alanik investigative expertise into several books that made the detective somewhat of a celebrity in port-a-lucine, and he frequently attends galas and balls around the city. Thank you so much for your time, patient listeners. I've been meaning to introduce you to more prominent people around the Corps, so if this is something that interests you, do please tell me. And as always, be careful while crossing the mists.